Welcome. Today we will see about static properties and static methods in PHP. Before that, we will try to understand what are the types of variables available in the PHP. Basically, there are three types of variable: instance, class, or which is also known as a static variable, and third type of variable is a local variable. First, we will understand the instance variable. The variables which are declared inside the class are known as the instance variable. How to declare that? For example, I have a class test and I am declaring variable with public access specifier and dollar name of the variable. So these T1 and T2 are known as a instance variables. Here function cal is a user defined function having its own body. So these T1 and T2 are known as the instance variables. Now, as we know that the class never gets executed or the memory is not allocated to class. Instead of that, the memory is allocated to object of a class. Consider O1 and O2 are the two objects of this test class. So the memory will be allocated to these two objects of the class test O1 and O2 according to the number of variables inside the class. So for O1 there will be copy of T1 and T2 variable, and again for O2 object there will be one more copy of T1 and T2 variable, and this cal function address will be common for both the object of the class. So it means the instance variable will get memory each time when we will create a object. Suppose again if I create O3 object, there will be again a copy of T1 and T2 for the O3 object, and the values of this T1 T2 for all the object of the class will be different. Now we will try to understand the characteristics of instance variable. Instance variables are associated with the instance of the class, means object of the class. The copy of instance variable will be separate for each object. Means here T1 and T2 are instance variable. So there is a separate copy of T1 and T2 for O1 object and for O2 object and again for the coming object. And the value of this instance variable will be different for different object. For example, the value of T1 will be 8 for O1 and T1 of object O2 is having 10 value. It can be different value. So it means every time the new memory will be allocated for the instance variable when we will create the new object. Instance variables are declared with access specifier dollar variable name, and for accessing this instance variable inside the class in the method we have to use dollar this, and outside the class these variables are accessed using object name and arrow operator because these are associated with the object of the class. Now, what is the scope of or lifetime of this instance variable? It will be throughout the code. Within class, they are accessed using $this, a current pointer, and outside the class, they are accessed using the object of the class. Second type of variable is class or static variable. The variables inside the class but which are declared with the keyword static are known as a class or static variable. For example, in the same example, if we have declared static sports is equal to 10, for the T1 test and T2 test, I have declared instance variable and sports marks is having 10 marks, and where if we declare this variable declaration with the static keyword, then SP is known as a static variable. Now, about not using static variable, what will happen? Suppose for every student, the test 1 and test 2 marks will be different. But if I want to assign compulsorily 10 marks of sports to each student, so what will happen if we have sports marks is equal to 10 for O1? This SP variable is now without static keyword. So it means here SP is an instance variable. So for every object there will be separate copy of this SP which will be having 10 10 value. So what we observe over here, even though this SP is having 10 value, every time the new memory will be allocated to it, each object will have a separate copy of SP variable. So there will be a memory wastage. Now how we can save the memory? Just precede this declaration of SP with the static keyword. So by declaring SP variable as a static, it will become a static variable. So what change it will bring? So instead of allocating memory to SP inside the object of a class, it will get memory outside the object of the class. And the memory will be allocated only once. And its value will be common to all the objects of a class, even though you create n number of objects. So memory will be saved, because if you have 100 object, still we will allocate memory to SP variable only once, and its value will be 10, and that will be common for all the 100 objects of the class. Now we will understand the characteristics of static variable. Static variable are associated with the class. Only one copy of that static variable is created for every object. Memory is allocated only once, and its value will be common or same for all object of a class, even there are n number of objects of the class. How we can declare static variable? You can have access specifier, static, dollar variable name. You can give value over here by using equal to operator. Now, how this static variable will be accessed inside and outside the class, we have to use class name and scope resolution operator and the name of the static variable. Now, we will see calculating area of circle using class and object and using static variable. Let us try writing a code for this PHP script. PHP start tag. Suppose I have a class circle, and here I am declaring variable r which is having radius, and suppose I am writing public function, suppose cal, suppose having parameterized function, that is x as a parameter, and I am writing that this pointer for the r variable will have the x value which is received in this parenthesis. Whatever value will be passed to this cal function will be received in this x variable, and we are assigning the value of x variable to the r variable of circle class. Now here this r is instance variable. So this is accessed using $this and arrow operator inside the class. So we will calculate the area of circle, and we will display over here area of circle. Now for area of circle, we have to declare pi variable. Now suppose for public, if I write dollar pi is equal to 3.14. Now, if we declare this as instance variable, what will happen if we want to create or calculate area of 100 circle? Obviously, we will create 100 object outside the class, and for every object there will be copy of r and pi, r and pi, r and pi. So there will be memory wastage for this pi variable by allocating memory time each time the object will be created. So how to save memory? Because the value of this pi variable is common for all the object of circle class, so we will take decision to declare this pi variable as a static variable. So what will happen, there will be only one copy of this pi variable even though you create 100 object of the circle class inside the code. So memory will be saved. So if I have created, I want to calculate area of circle, I have given a message. Dot is a string concatenation operator. Here I want to calculate, put formula like pi into r into r. So now pi is a static variable. So I cannot access pi like this just by name. Or I cannot write dollar this arrow pi because it is not an instance variable, so we cannot use dollar this. Pi is a static variable, so compulsorily we have to write name of the class scope resolution dollar pi, pi into r. Now r is an instance variable, so we have to write dollar this r into dollar this arrow r. So area of circle will be calculated and it will be displayed over here. Now if we will close the function, we will close the class. This class will not run by its own, we have to call the cal function. But for calling the cal function, we have to create object of a class circle. Now suppose if I want to calculate area of circle, then I will create suppose C1 as the object of this circle class. And for this C1 object, obviously there will be a copy of R variable. So for calculating area of that C1 object or C1 circle, I have to call this cal function. So C1 arrow cal, but for calling cal function, I have to pass the radius inside the bracket. Suppose I am passing 2, so it will call the cal function. And suppose now here I am printing message as a thank you. Close the PHP script. Now we will save this code under our XAMPP htdocs folder with any name, suppose sir.php file. For running this PHP file, we have to start our XAMPP control panel, start the Apache and MySQL. We have to start our local host. So we will start our local host which is available at port number 8080, and we will give the name of our program, that is sir.php. Now area of circle is 0 and the message is displayed as a thank you. Now why this has happened? We have passed two value in this dollar $x. X is passed to this r variable. Area of circle is calculated by writing this circle scope resolution dollar pi, and we have not assigned the pi value over here. So public static pi is equal to 3.14. So save the code, refresh the output. Now we have received the area of circle. So for the C1 object, now what has happened? For the C1 object, a new memory block gets created and having name as a C1 object, and C1 is a object of circle class. So inside circle we have R variable, and for this R variable we have passed value as 2 which will be assigned, and in class we have one more variable pi, but that is static and having value as 3.14. So the memory block will be created outside the object, and it will have pi is equal to 3.14 variable outside the object, and it will be allocated only once. Now suppose in future I want to calculate area of one more circle. So I will not modify this code inside the class. Instead, I will simply create one more object having name as a C2. So when object will be created, the memory block will be created, will be given name as a C2, and as C2 is a object of circle class, circle is having R and pi. R is a normal instance variable, so a separate copy of R will be created for this C2 object and will be waiting for the value. And class is again having pi variable which is static. So already once memory is allocated to static variable, so this value will be shared by all the object of a class in future also. Now we will pass this radius value to this x which will be copied into R of C2, and we have to call the cal function for C2 object and pass the radius. So I have passed 3 value over here. So 3 will be assigned to the R variable of C2 object, and pi will be common. So refresh the code and we get area of circle is 28.26. So this is the use of instance variable and static variable. So when and why to declare any variable as a static? If any variable is having a common value for all the object of a class, then declare that variable as a static. So after declaring static, what will happen? Only one copy of that variable will be created, and it will be shared among all the object of a class. Moving on, what is the scope or lifetime of static variable that we have seen? It will be accessed within a class and outside the class using class name and scope resolution. Like this, inside the class circle there is a pi variable which is static, so that is accessed within a class using class name scope resolution. If you want to change the value outside the class, you can do it by writing circle scope resolution pi is equal to suppose 4.14, and then again create a new object and calculate the area of circle for this C3 object. Now let's execute this code. What we have seen over here, there is an error. We cannot initialize this equal to static variable over here by using class name, scope resolution. Just by writing name, we have to mention the dollar symbol over here and now see the code. So what has happened? The area of circle was 12.56, then 28.56 for 2 and 3 radius. Then we have changed the value of pi as a 4.14 outside the class by using class name, scope resolution, and we have created one more C3 object, that is third circle, and we have passed the same radius to. Now the output is 16.56 instead of 12.56 because the pi is changed from 3.14 to 4.14. Okay, so static variables are accessed outside and inside the class using class name, scope resolution. Moving on, third type of variable is a local variable. The variable which are declared inside the method are known as a local variable. For example, in this cal function, I have $n variable, then it will be treated as a local variable. So this n will not be accessible outside this cal function. That is the scope or lifetime of this variable. It is available only within the function in which it is declared. For example, suppose in this code, in this cal function, if I am declaring variable like $x is equal to 3, and suppose I am printing value of x value is equal to $x, and we are printing the value of $x. So see what output we get. X value is 3. Value is X value is 3 because we have created two objects. Now suppose I want to access this X variable outside the class. So if I write echo $x, let's see, do we get output? It is giving message undefined variable $x on line 14. It is giving error over here because $x is declared inside the function cal, so its lifetime is within this function body only. It cannot be accessed outside the class by using just by name, or you cannot write $c1 arrow x because $c1 arrow $x or anything because that is not defined inside the circle class, undefined property, because x is not within the circle class. So this is about local variable. So in this session we have seen about three types of variables in PHP, that is instance, class or static, and local variable. We have seen the characteristics of instance variable. As there are n number of objects, then there will be n number of copies of instance variable. N times memory will be allocated for every instance variable when the object will be created. The value of instance variable will be different for different object, and instance variable are accessed inside the class using $this arrow and outside the class using object name arrow. Characteristics of static variables are: the memory is allocated only once, it is declared with the static keyword, value of static variable will be common or same for all the object of a class, and it will be shared among all the object of the same class. Static variables are accessed inside the class and outside the class using class name scope resolution operator. And we have seen the implementation of all three types of variable. Local variable is accessible only within the function in which it is declared. Hope you have understood the concept of types of variables in PHP. See you in the next session. Thank you.